Hey everybody, this is Dylan. I'm here with Mark Huberman, the president of the National Health Association. Many of you know I'm here at the conference for my first time. We've had an amazing lineup of doctors that have been giving a number of presentations. We've only just begun, but I had the opportunity here to sit with Mark, who has been a lifelong vegan, whole food, plant-based eater like us. Tell us what that must be like.
Well, I consider myself an incredibly lucky guy. My parents started living this way, or at least started me living this way when I was born, which is June 26, 1951. So I just turned 67 years old. And to think back in 1951, to not want to give them milk, not want to give them dairy, not want to give them meat, not want to give them pizza. And for me, even more uniquely, raised me on raw fruits and vegetables. As the Sheltonian diet for all of my growing up. And so I consider myself incredibly blessed that my parents were that far ahead of their time. Mm-hmm. In 1951. There were no salad bars in 1951. There were no grocery stores with huge produce aisles in 1951. There was no Whole Foods or no Trader Joe's.
And they had just switched around the time you were born?
They had a number of health problems. My father had collapsed with polio a year or two earlier. My mother had some thyroid problems, appendicitis. I have an older brother who had bronchial asthma, and they were just kind of a train wreck of a family. And my father worked for a guy who owned a furniture store, who was a vegetarian, kind of a health enthusiast, and he said, "Max, there's got to be a better way." He said, "I'd like you to come here and lecture." And so he took him to Cleveland, where Dr. Herbert Shelton and Dr. Gerald Benish were lecturing. And for some people, maybe there are just different kinds of people in the world. There are people that are closed-minded, and you could feed all the information to them in the world, and it would never click. Mm-hmm. Then there are those that I describe as being open, can kind of hear and can listen and learn. And my parents were that kind, and it just makes, even though I don't think they fully understood the power of this way of living, but they just trusted it, almost religiously. They just trusted it was right. I got through a major health crisis when I was born, and they started me on that way of living, and there I am. My father had an organic garden and a compost pile before people even knew what compost piles were. When they opened a health food store in 1958, they were the first people in the nation to retail organic fruits and vegetables. When there weren't organic seals and that, but they found growers all over the country that would, the best mangoes, the best pineapples, really tree ripened, unsprayed, all of that. So they were just so far ahead of their time. Wow. My father used to even, didn't like chlorinated water and fluoridated water, so we would go to a well with 5-gallon glass jugs and fill the station wagon in box. I don't know how we didn't spill it all over the place, but we would get 7 or 8 gallon, we'd pump water, because my father understood that what the natural hygienist taught, that it's not just food, it's not just Whole Foods and least processed and all that, but it's fresh air, pure water, sufficient rest, emotional poise, productive living. Those were all the elements of health, and they got that. They got that a long time ago. Yeah. So that's what they raised me as.
We're early adopters, and they were like early adopters.
Early adopters. I like to say, and I said on the podium this morning, that most people think today in the whole food plant-based diet movement, that they think that the fathers of that movement are John McDougall, are Dean Ornish, are Caldwell Esselstyn, or T. Colin Campbell, and they're incredible people. I mean, they have given incredible credibility to this movement. But the real fathers of the whole modern day whole food plant-based diet movement are the natural hygienists and the founders of the American Natural Hygiene Society, which we now call the National Health Association. Herbert Shelton, Gerald Benish, Alec Burton, Keki Sidwa, John Brocious, Gian Curcio. These people who founded our organization in 1948, we're talking about it was a whole food, plant-based, mostly raw, unprocessed, no added oil, no salt, no sugar. These didn't belong in the human diet. And water fasting. They also recognized water fasting as an incredible vehicle to help marshal the powers of the body to heal itself. Mm-hmm. They understood, and they've been teaching that. Our organization was formed in 1948. Our first conference was in 1949. And that's where these people lectured. And Alan Goldhammer, Joel Furman, Frank Sabatino, these people all grew up at these conferences. Their peers were Alan Goldhammer's teacher was Gerald Benish. Frank Sabatino, the same. Wow. Worked for Shelton in that. So I'm blessed to call these my peers and my friends and all that, but it's really one of the great untold stories of the modern day whole food plant-based health movement T. Colin Campbell, I have a story, everybody knows T. Colin Campbell. When in the early 90s, I believe it was, when he had just written the China Study, groundbreaking book, became, I think, almost like John Robbins' book. It just kind of transformed America's consciousness about diet and nutrition and health. So T. Colin Campbell, right after writing this groundbreaking book and very much in demand, had lost his ability to speak. He developed a condition. He was exposed to dioxin in some of his studies, and came to one of our conferences in the early 90s, and I can still picture it down in Florida. Came into a meeting with Dr. Burton and Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Scott and these people, and was explaining his health problem. And one of the presidents of our association said, I invited him to come to meet with the doctor. He said, maybe we can help you. Colin went out to True North Health, fasted, I think, 2 times, I don't remember the length of his fast, recovered his ability to speak.
Incredible.
And I think, in my opinion, and I think if you ask Colin, he would say that his exposure to not only water fasting, but the True North SOS health program that Alan espouses, that's really what broadened his horizons. He was most interested in animal proteins and cancer and those kinds of things that he had studied and seen. He didn't really see the larger picture until he got to True Health. But that's what the National Health Association, American Natural Hygiene Society, and the people that lead our conferences, that's what they get. That's who you meet.
It's fascinating that you tell that story, because my first introduction was through the China Study. And that's what encouraged me to become vegan in 2013, which was more than 3 years before I started actually doing it right. And I felt like in the China Study, he didn't cover a lot of what we cover now.
That's why his next book, Whole,
right,
kind of broadened the picture.
And even Whole I read before I switched in 2016 to Eating Right, and that didn't quite get through to me. Like, I thought, oh yeah, I'm vegan. I mean whole food, plant-based. You just kind of, if you're vegan, you like think you've got it. I don't know. But I did not. I was not eating whole food the way that he recommended in the book Whole. And it took getting to the starch solution and then to the pleasure trap, which was huge for me, to finally see it. And then I went to True North, where I first met with Dr. Goldhammer, Dr. Clapper, everybody, and did a fast. And it was, so that's kind of how it's progressed for me.
Again, what I'm so proud of is that the message of True North, the message of now Dr. Sabatino, the message of Dr. Ewan here in Cleveland, it's all the same. It is the whole food, pure whole food plant-based diet. I consider ourselves the gold standard of the whole food plant-based movement. Yeah. Because again, you can be vegan, and vegan doesn't necessarily have anything to do with health.
No.
Although there are great ethical components and all that to it, which of course. But unless you get the SOS, unless you get the unprocessed, you're still going to struggle. You're still going to struggle. So we've been the gold standards for 70 years. I'm pretty proud of that.
I don't think it's going to change.
It's not going to, because truth doesn't change. Dr. Shelton he used to had a magazine that I don't know if you've ever seen, called the Hygienic Review, that he published for like 50 years. And at his little slogan at the top was, "Let us have the truth, though the heavens fall." And he used that forever, and it is the eternal truths of this way of living and eating. Is pretty fundamental. The exciting thing for me is that what was philosophic, logical, what they empirically observed, going back to the 1900s, and certainly the modern day people, the Benish, there's now the scientific validation of all of that. What the studies that Joel Furman is doing, that Alan Goldhammer is doing, and even the Dean Ornish and these people are doing, it's all validated what people in our health movement have been saying for over 70 years, just our organization have been saying for 70 years. So it's pretty rewarding and satisfying for me, having grown up in it, to see that.
You're changing lives.
We're changing lives.
I wanted to ask one thing. What was it like, well, maybe you don't remember being a kid, exposed to all of this and others and different ways of doing it. There are all the wrong ways of doing it from your peers around you. And you've also raised kids, right?
I have.
So what was that like? Was it exactly like you expected it to be? Was it what you remember as a kid? A little bit about kind of that experience?
I think for me, again, I grew up uniquely. I like to say sometimes that I've never met anybody like me, that was raised on raw fruits and vegetables, nuts and dates. I never grew up with a baked potato. I never grew up with a piece of soy cheese. I never grew up with a piece of pizza. I never had milk. I never even used soy milk. I grew up on truly the Sheltonian diet, raw, whole fruits and vegetables and that. And I think as I look back, taste is kind of a learned behavior. So what you've never had, you don't miss. I never really had a willpower issue. I never saw, if I was in elementary school and everybody had their carton of milk and their peanut butter and jelly sandwich and all that, and I had my apples and cashews and an orange or some cashew butter on a piece of apple and that looked good to me every day. Salad looked good to me every day. It really was never willpower. Maybe the vegan in me didn't even, I guess I never really judged too much what people did. I wasn't attracted to what people did. There are only a few things that ever sort of put me off. One of them was when I'd go to functions, I'd see a pig on a stick, a pig being roasted, thinking, is the world crazy?
Yeah.
This is really shameful. And when I would see even hooking fish to go fishing or hooking worms, all of that seemed odd to me. Seemed,
right.
I guess I was raised in kind of a harmlessness sort of way. Why do harm and all that? But beyond that, I mean, people were eating pizza. It didn't bother me. I had my cashews and raisins if they were eating their popcorn. It was okay. And I just grew up that way. And it was unique because I had an older brother who was 3 years older than me, who was not raised on raw foods like I was. I mean, we were vegetarians. We weren't even vegans when I was growing up. I was, but my parents weren't even. It was kind of a journey for them. But they started me this way because I came through a health crisis and it just seemed the right thing to do, and it's kind of how I was raised. But they didn't, and it was a journey for them like it is for so many people. Mm-hmm. And probably by the time I was in high school, that's my parents coming to these conferences every year and learning about, oil, and salt, and kelp, and all these sort of things. They just sort of got cleaner and cleaner as they went. And then when I was 18 years old, I got on the board of this organization. And so what was impressive to me, what I did because of faith, belief, it's all I knew.
Right.
Then, I had the fortune of, I knew Alan Goldhammer when he was in college. I knew Joel Furman before he was in college. And to watch these guys validate, people that I respected enormously, validate what I was doing, then I even felt better about what I was doing. But I don't know, it certainly was a different world in the 50s and even in the 60s. There were no salad bars. There were no grocery stores. First thing you see when you come into a grocery store with the huge produce aisles and all that. That wasn't like that.
Right.
But I guess the other thing I would say is that I had a very loving family. Joel Furman wrote the book Eat to Live. A lot of people live to eat. Most of the world. In the Huberman family, we didn't live to eat.
Right.
We ate to live, and my parents were, my father in particular was a guy involved with theater, politics, and the arts. And so we used food as kind of a vehicle to enjoy the rest of life. So food was never the central focus.
Right.
While we enjoyed eating and all that, but that wasn't it. I was an actor. I was in politics. As were my parents. So
by the time
it was just fuel for our activity.
Right. By the time you had kids, you had moved beyond raw to eating whole starches.
Yeah, it's a funny story. When I was raw whole foods, for 32 and a half years of my life, virtually the first half of my life. And what changed is that I went on. I took a trip to Athens and Rome. I got a super opportunity of a vacation for $500 for a week in Athens, a week in Italy, and a week in Greece. And so I went on this trip, and one day we were in Italy, and we went from Rome, started out about 6 o'clock in the morning, went from Rome to Sorrento, to Naples, Sorrento, Pompeii, and the Isle of Capri. Mm-hmm. And I did what I always did on such trips, is I had a little brown bag, and I had a banana, and I had some apples, and some cashews, and some raisins, and things like that to just keep me sustained. And oftentimes when I traveled, and I've done a lot of traveling throughout the world, you were always able to find a fruit market or something. You could get through, but I always took my own provisions to make sure. Well, this one particular day, it was a long day, and I ran out. And so we're coming back about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night on the bus, coming back to Rome to our hotel. I was hungry, and we stopped at this restaurant, and there was nothing for me to eat. They had baked potatoes, but I didn't eat baked potatoes. They had cooked green beans, but I didn't eat cooked green beans. They had salads, but they're Italian salads with all kinds of vinegar and stuff, and I never liked vinegar, and so Italian vinegar and oil and all that stuff. So I was hungry, and I thought to myself on that trip when I got back that night, I said, am I doing this? Am I a raw foodist because I think it's necessary to sustain my health, or am I doing this because this is all I've ever known? Because Alan Goldhammer, Joel Furman, Frank Sabatino, the people that Dr. Burton, Dr. Scott, people that I enormously respected, who all thought whole live foods should be the center of your diet, never thought that a raw food diet is what you needed to do. And in fact, I would say more people than not would say it's tough to sustain a diet, sustain your weight, sustain your vitality on just raw foods. There's a lot of raw food people that disagree with that, but the people that my peers, the people that I respected, just didn't seem to think that was essential. So I decided when I got home, I was going to try cook foods and see what it would do to my body. I did have some anxiety that, having never had it, what would happen? What kind of reaction would it have to my unusual physiology? My hope was that I'd gain like 10, 20 pounds from it, but it didn't. So I had baked potato. My mother was a good vegetarian cooker. She used to cook wild rice and steamed vegetables in celery juice and carrot juice that gave it a natural aroma, and it was great. That always tasted good. I never insisted on having it, but it always smelled pretty good.
Yeah.
So I had some, and I did have a kind of an epiphany that you don't have to put something scalding hot in your mouth. You could let it cool a little bit before you have it. So I did. I enjoyed it. I liked it. It had zero effect on my physiology, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it, and so that ended my raw food virginity at age 32 and a half. And since then, I think I have, if I don't have a cooked meal, I miss it. I find it more fulfilling, and fortunately, with the Kathy Fishers and the Chef AJs and the Katie Mays of the world, boy, it is so much fun and so satisfying to have such great dishes, great soups and stews and things like that. I'm still pretty pure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not gone the vegan gourmet. I'm not a spice guy. I eat still pretty clean, and there's still no dairy in my life. There's no added sugar in my life. I don't do any of that stuff. But boy, I sure enjoy what used to be my horn of plenty. Used to be just fruits and vegetables. Now it's
and that's what it's all about. Like, there are a number of ways to do it right. I like a lot more spices. I need those cooked starches. I just can't get enough of it.
Yep.
But no, whatever. If it's such a basic set of principles, if you adhere to, you're going to be pretty damn healthy.
Colin Campbell in the book Whole does make, and some people disagree with his principle, that if you just eat the spectrum of a whole food plant-based diet, you don't need to worry about this factor and that factor and all that. Just get your spectrum, get all your steam, all your greens and your colorful vegetables and all that, and you'll be fine in this world. You'll largely be fine. I tend to agree with that. I think everybody's looking for, well, how much kale should we add, or how much this should we add, or should we add turmeric to our smoothie, or should we add this? I think it's a lot less complicated than that.
Yeah.
I think this is a profoundly simple, powerful diet and lifestyle to sustain wonderful health and to give you the best shot that you possibly can to the best longevity you can.
Perfect.
I'm convinced of it. So again, do I take vitamin B12? Yeah, Joel and the people tell me, you should test your level. I've tested my level, and on a vegan diet, I test low. So I take a B12. I test my vitamin D, I take a vitamin D. That's what Mark Huberman does.
Right.
Should I take DHA? I take DHA once in a while. I test. But beyond that,
that's about it.
That's about it. I have a Joel Furman says your salad should be your main meal. It's been my main meal from day one. My salad is not this. And my salad, it's just another personal Mark Huberman philosophy about salads. I've watched in the whole food plant-based movement and all meals. I think people have kind of lost in the gourmet version of salads. The salads become with vinegars and all these kind of things. I don't want to downplay vinegars and all that. Salads, to me, are really salads with lots of fresh vegetables in them, with celery and lettuce and carrots and peppers and all those kind of things. Adding beans and things like that are all great. But boy, people need to eat salads. Big salad. And Joel is right. Your salad should be your main meal. And if you do that, weight will never be a problem.
Yeah.
If you have your salad first, and it's a real salad with lots of greens and lots of celery and lots of tomatoes and carrots and peppers, those things, you'll be great.
Yeah.
And I see too often, even when you go to vegetarian restaurants and vegan restaurants, even the good ones, it's hard to get a salad.
It's
A
hard to
real
get
salad.
Yeah, it's hard to get a clean salad.
It's hard to get a
Once
clean
you've
salad.
removed all the junk, it's just a bowl of lettuce.
Correct. And you pay
For
and you pay for
$12.
$12. And maybe if they add some pea shoots, it's another $12.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's just a beautiful. It's a beautiful lifestyle, incredibly empowering, and again, I just consider myself one of the blessed guys, most blessed guys on the planet. Not only to have been raised this way and to have that kind of health foundation, but to count as my peers and my friends, Joel Furman, Alan Goldhammer, Frank Sabatino, Michael Clapper. I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah. And you can see them all here. I encourage you to check out the conference, healthscience.org. Mark's also an editor of the Health Science magazine, which is a fantastic magazine. It's not one of these pop culture vegan magazines. It's really about health and doing it right.
And it's not like when you go into a health food store and you pick up Better Nutrition, which just is selling you every pill and potion,
Yeah.
every kind of thing you can rub on your head and on your back and on your body. It's 40 pages long, pretty high quality, I think you'll agree. And it's just articles on health, and it is the gold standard of the NHA of all the recipes and all the things. It's SOS-Free, and it's an unadulterated, pure philosophy, and we've been doing that. It's $35 a year. And when you join the NHA and you register on the website, you gain 20 years of back issues for nothing.
Right, and a number of ebooks
And a
about
number of
natural
ebooks. Fasting
hygiene
can save your life. The most popular book ever written on fasting, for free.
included.
Yep, pretty good deal.
So you'll have details for the next year's conference soon.
We're announcing it. There's an early bird that people can even register right now for $450. We think it's going to be back here in Cleveland.
Okay.
They really want us back. They've made us almost an offer we can't refuse. We've sold out here, and I have no doubt we'll sell out again. And I think you would agree, Dylan, the food has been
Fantastic.
off the top. So they've done a great job for us. So we'll see.
Great. Thanks for your time. You've seen it now. You can do 67, was it, years?
70 years.
70 years.
70 years. How about that?
7 decades of whole food plant-based eating. It works. So come to the conference. Thank you, Mark, for your time and for having us, all the work you're doing. It's fantastic.
Thank you for the work you're doing, spreading the word.
My pleasure.
This
It's
is,
been a lot
I
of
think
fun.
that's the amazing thing about the world we're in now. The information was never more available. In those 70 years, for the first maybe 50 years of our organization, we were the only game in town. We were the only place where people could come together and learn about a whole food plant-based diet. Now there's lots of great places to go, lots of great seminars to go to, but we've been doing it for 70 years.
I think
we're pretty proud of that legacy.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see it through the internet. Thanks for that. Pushing harder and faster. I really feel the momentum.
If you want information, you can find it like never before.
Yeah.
It's great. So, thank you, Dylan.
Cool. Thank you.
Pleasure.
See y'all in the next interview. Take care.